with the BF Squad. Hi and hello, Bills Mafia. Welcome to the Buffalo Fanatics Writers Room, part of the Buffalo Fanatics Tailgate pregame show. I am Adam Nannini, the chief editor at Buffalo Fanatics, thebuffalofanatics.com, and I am joined by a whole basket of spicy hot wing men. We've got our pregame analyst. He does all of our pregame talks and write-ups, and that is Michael Lefebvre. He is sort of our spicy barbecue. He's sweet. He's underrated. Michael Lefebvre. He's with us today. We've also got the blue cheese of this group, and that is Zach Vaughn. Zach Vaughn does a lot of fantastic write-ups for us on the Buffalo Fanatics. And finally, Mr. Regular Thursday Thought, Mitchell Broder is with us. Today, we are looking at the Monday night game between the Bills and the Arizona 49ers. I don't know. But first, boys, say hello to Bills Mafia.
You guys, how are you?
Hello.
Thanks for tuning in, Bills Mafia.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too early for you all. We really appreciate you guys listening. Guys, let's jump right into it. Michael, you wrote the pregame piece this week, as you always do. It's always so good. If you haven't seen that, make sure you check out his stuff. But you did some looking not only at the matchups historically between the Bills and the Niners, but also the Buffalo Bills in prime time. Could you shed a little light on how the Bills have done in that spot?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I start out by saying I think Monday Night Football, we all should be, and I think we are to a good degree amped up about it, but I think there's a good amount of nervousness going into this game because of that history. The Bills under Sean McDermott, I looked at, so since the 2017 season, not particularly strong at all in prime time. I know they've been really strong at 1 p.m., so much so I think they've kind of been dubbed the 1 p.m. Bills because 1 p.m. fly under the radar. That's the usual time slot. That's the way to go. In those games, the 1 p.m. games, they're 26-16. So they do a really nice job handling their business when no one's watching, or just maybe Bills Mafia is watching. The problem comes in with the prime time. And all other times, they're 4-7. And that includes some, Sunday at 4. So not really the typical 1 p.m. If we were to just isolate that to just prime time, so we're talking night games, they are 1-5. 1-5. And that only win, I'm sure we all remember, is last year in Pittsburgh to clinch a playoff berth. So listen, if they want to win the AFC East, which they're in a good spot for that right now, they're going to have to reverse that trend. It's the only way to finally get over that hump of the AFC East and hopefully hump of the primetime struggles as well.
And, Michael, tell us about the Bills matchups versus the Niners. What sort of games have they been?
Oh, man, that was fun to look into. I go back and I take a look at the last 5 games. Very odd that all of the Bills-Niners matchups have been absolute blowouts. They have not been competitive games, with the exception of 2008. 2008 was a really boring game. This Niners won 10-3. But aside from that, the point differentials, I have them here in the games, have been 35 points, 34 points, 42, and 29. These games have not been close at all. I don't know if it's a team traveling to the other coast sort of deal, but we'll get into this, but I'm not sure that trend's going to continue tomorrow night.
All right. Well, Michael laying it out for us. Great research on that, Michael. Mitch, let me come to you real quick. I mean, McDermott's struggling on primetime games and 4 o'clock games. Because they're moving us out of that slot, you would think that those games are generally going to be against better teams. I mean, is this an issue of correlation versus causation? Like, it's reasonable he doesn't have a great record in those games because typically those are going to be against more powerhouse teams. What do you think?
I think it's a little bit of that. And then also, maybe it is this routine thing that, we've talked about. I mean, I think that, obviously, we look at the stretch down the end of the season here. I mean, they're not playing too many, easy teams to end the season. A lot of these games are in that national TV window. And I think some of it is, this routine with McDermott. I mean, he's appears to be kind of a creature, by habit, and playing at 8:30 on a Monday night is not necessarily what he and this Bills team are used to. Now, I think that I am a little hopeful, that maybe this trend could stop now that they are, becoming a little bit more of a good team consistently, and that this is going to kind of come with that is this national exposure. But I think it's a little bit of both of the routine that McDermott likes, and on top of that, they are playing, some good teams in these primetime games. So I'll go with a little bit of both.
Okay. Yeah. Typically, everything is always a little more gray than we'd like to imagine. Zach, our next 4 games, including this week, are not at the 1 p.m. slate, which, Michael laid out a pretty dire perspective on that. You scared me, Michael. Take it easy, bro. But, Zach, what do you think of these upcoming games? And is there a way you can see maybe the Bills, overcoming that?
Well, I think, while everyone has already mentioned that everyone likes the 1 p.m. games, the Bills are used to them. And I know it's going to rock the boat that they're playing on Monday night, then they play on Sunday night, then they play a couple more primetime games. But it may actually work out because of the fact that the last month of the season, they're playing nothing but basically primetime games. So you may establish a new habit for the last month. And I don't think it's as daunting as many Bills fans would like to think.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the Bills can do to, address this. And this is going to be a good test of McDermott's coaching ability. Thank you, Zach. That was great. Next, guys, before we get into the specifics of where we're playing, which we'll get into that in a moment, do you think it's a benefit this week that we're playing on the road or at home? I mean, I know at home we don't have fans or whatnot. And, I know there's a part of me that kind of wonders if Allen's just a little bit better on the road. I don't know if you guys feel that way. Mitch, I'm going to start with you on this one. What do you see from Allen? I don't have the record, the numbers in front of me. Look, I'm a writer. I'm not a numbers guy, okay? But, Mitch, I want to know, what do you see? Do you think Allen, do you trust him more on the road, or do you wish this was a home game?
I think that, instincts will tell you definitely you'd rather this be a home game. Now, of course, as we know for this particular game, sure, it's home for San Francisco, but is it really home for them with what's going on in Santa Clara right now? But, with Allen, I'll say this, though. I think, and this kind of is the case with McDermott, I think, too. I don't have the numbers in front of me either, but I think McDermott's road record is, shockingly good. So, it could be the case. I think we tend to see more of that fourth quarter Josh Allen, honestly. On the road, we saw it with Arizona a couple of weeks ago. I look back to that Pittsburgh game again. Allen was great in that fourth quarter. So, there could be something there. But I think that, because this is a cross-country trip, for this game isolated, I actually think that I'd maybe prefer this game to be at home and bring a California team into the the harsh weather December Buffalo. But I guess we'll find out tomorrow night. But I think my instincts tell me I like this game to be in Buffalo.
All right, Zach, let's come to you real quick and let's do a follow-up. The Niners have one of the best running schemes in the NFL. I mean, often great offensive coordinators and coaches can scheme guys open. Seems like Shanahan and his dad, Mike and Kyle, they have the ability to scheme running backs open. In a way, is this an advantage for the Bills to be going to warm weather as opposed to, as Mitch was saying, being in the elements where, the Niners would be running all over us? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's actually a fair point, because when you think about the blizzard game a couple of years ago, you think about all those bad weather games with the Bills. That was back before the Bills could actually ever really pass the ball. I mean, with the exception of the 90s Bills, because they were great all around. But usually the Bills would have that power running attack that really served them well in the harsh winter months. But so, yeah, I would say that maybe it is actually a bit of an advantage that the Bills are playing out in Arizona this week, because, one, they'll be able to get their passing game going, and then also they'll be able to probably better defend the 49ers rushing attack. And speaking as someone who has benefited from Jerick McKinnon in fantasy, I should say they really need to be able to shut that down this week.
Ooh, look at Zach taking the fantasy shine this week. I like it. Michael, let me ask you a question. As we're moving into the colder months and, possibly a Bills home game in the playoffs, knocking on wood here, how important do you think it is that we really spend the rest of the season establishing the run, like getting that going? It feels like today is another one of those days we might want to do that, but how do you feel about that? Or do we just throw caution to the wind and say, no, you know what? We're a passing team. We got to roll with that, and that's the answer.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to a degree. I don't think that it is as big of a deal as some like to mention. Let's not forget that one of the consistent traits that Brandon Beane referenced when talking about Josh Allen was big hands, ability to really throw the ball in some tough weather. He did it in Wyoming, and thinking, he was Buffalo through and through, they would say. So that includes, really gunning out some tough weather conditions. So I think that's where they're trending, being a pass first offense. Of course, it's great to be able to run the ball. I do think they need to get that figured out in case you do get a blizzard game like that Colts game from a few years ago that was mentioned a few minutes ago. But I think if we're going to take the management at face value, which is, hey, we drafted this guy because the weather's tough in Buffalo. Now, really, it is tough in Buffalo, but it's not like every game's a blizzard. So they do, Buffalo does catch some breaks. That game against the Seahawks, the 1st of November, I think was, or the 8th, November 8th was 70 degrees. So there are times where definitely I think letting Allen do what he was brought here to do is going to benefit them in the long run equally to getting the run game going.
All right. Fantastic answer on this one. And, we're getting a pretty consistent question. Let's take a look at this from Jeffrey Green, although we've heard similar questions from Mr. Blakely, Elliot Eisler. Do we play a 4-3 or a 3-4? I think he probably means, do we play in the 4-3 or do we play our standard nickel defense? Because the Bills' base defense typically runs out of the nickel. That means we've got 2 linebackers and 5 defensive backs, for those unaware. Now, that's a really good question against this team that's so run-heavy. Zach, let's start with you. What do you see from the Bills? What do you think Frazier and McDermott might dial up this game in terms of our linebacker use? Of course, we may have Milano back. That's pretty big. And A.J. Klein is the reigning defensive player of the week in the AFC. What do you see, man?
Well, I would say that I think based on the 49ers' ability to run the ball, they will probably want to do more 4-3 this week. They, like you said, they usually come out in the nickel with either a nickel corner or the Buffalo nickel with the safety there. But I think they'll probably play a bit more of the 4-3 just to combat the running backs and the tight ends. And this, I guess this would be more assuming that Matt Milano is activated and plays. Then they will do more 4-3. And if he's not activated, then maybe you do a bit more of the Buffalo nickel and Teron Johnson's actually been pretty decent in run support this year.
Yep.
So he could also combat the run game. But I think I would just love to see Matt Milano get on the field, even if it is on a limited snap count. But in order to adequately defend the run, you want to have as many sideline to sideline players as you can get on the field.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Michael, let me ask you a question that's kind of a follow-up, and you can sort of attack on the last point we were talking about, last question, if you'd like. It looks like the Bills, Alex Lucci just put out his pregame injury report. So that's published on the BuffaloFanatics.com. He does a great job for us, along with Gage Aziz. We have, I think, two of the best injury writers in Bills Mafia or Bills Media, so you want to check that out. They put out the injury report, and it's looking pretty good for the Bills. It looks like we're going to be pretty damn healthy this week. How much do you think that's going to factor into the game, and does that give you a lot of hope that the defense is really going to show up this week?
Yeah, I think that plays into the game in a big way, especially when we're matching up against a team that has a strong run game and also starting a backup quarterback. This is the first game since the Raiders game that the defense should be going in healthy. Now, in that Raiders game, Levi Wallace was injured, I think, after 6 plays or so. So he exited that game. But really, it's about time. Here we are in almost the final 5 weeks of the season that this defense can finally get on the field all at the same time. And to touch back on the last point, how this Bills team attacks, I do think you're going to see kind of the reverse game plan that they implemented against the Chiefs, which was essentially sell out to stop Patrick Mahomes in the passing attack. I think they'll do the opposite of that in this one and do their best to take away the run game and force Nick Mullins to attack and to beat the Bills' now healthy secondary. And if that's the game plan, which I would think they go with, I think that would bode pretty well for the Bills.
All right, fantastic. Jeff King asks, Victor Galarza asks, is Matt Milano playing? We don't know that yet, Victor. But he is. There's a good chance he's going to. He's not on IR anymore. They can call him up, have him play. Mitch, I want to get your take on this question about the linebackers, and I also wanted to hear your thought on how well what you saw of the defense last week when we played against a really good Chargers offense.
I mean, I think that if Milano's healthy, I think you have to play him to some degree. He's just such a game changer for that defense. I mean, I think, we've seen it this year. When he's healthy, that's a different unit on that side of the ball. So, I mean, if he's healthy, they got to play him. Now, it certainly helps that A.J. Klein's been playing at such a high level recently. Definitely makes you not have to rush Milano out on the field, often. But, I think if he's good to go, you got to play him. And, I mean, we saw it last week with the Chargers. I thought that was their best game defensively all season. I mean, I know that it is a rookie quarterback, but Herbert's had a fantastic season. And I think they're the 4th ranked offense in the league, if I'm not mistaken. So the fact they held him to 17 points and kind of controlled the game for at least, 2.5, 3 quarters, I think that was encouraging to see. And then what's interesting, actually, the San Francisco matchup, too, is now I don't want to give them too much credit, but our friends at PFF, I was watching their pregame report for this game, and there was one thing that took my attention, which they talked about how, you would think going into this matchup, this is a terrible matchup for the Bills. The Niners run the ball great. The Bills can't stop the run. But what's interesting is that the one area the Bills have been really good on stopping are outside runs, outside zones, stretch plays, stuff like that. And that is a huge bulk of this 49ers run game, is getting to that edge. And they were saying that this is actually something that could play in the Bills' favor. And I just thought that was very interesting because, going into this matchup, I was convinced this is a terrible matchup for the Bills in that aspect. But, the Niners aren't necessarily a power run down your throat, up the gut team necessarily. So it's something to keep an eye on, I think, on Monday night for sure.
Man, Mitch, that's such a great point because not all run schemes are the same, and you're right, that outside zone, that Shanahan style, even though, it seems so hard to stop, and we'll see if we can. I mean, I don't think we're going to stop it. I think the best we can do is limit it. If we can keep them under 4 yards per carry or right around there, I'm going to feel pretty happy. But still, it's a great point about outside zone versus just up the gut. We're not going against Derrick Henry this week, so great point on that one. Here's an interesting question. I mean, we're getting so many great comments from Bills Mafia here. One thing I'm wondering about is let's switch to the offense for a moment. The team is getting healthier. Well, actually, before we get to the offense, I just got a great question or point. Derek Presley says, time for Mr. Ed Oliver to have a great game. They'll be running right at him tomorrow night. That's probably true. He might be the person they come after. Ed seemed to have a little bit of a bounce back game last week. I kind of called him out last week, and sorry about that. But hey, if it helped, it helped. What do you see from Ed right now? I'm sure you guys paid attention. Mike, let's start with you. I mean, are you encouraged by Ed's play last week? Do you think he's going to have another big game?
I am encouraged by his play. I think, he's been asked to do a lot. I'm not sure he's where exactly the Bills want him to be in terms of strategies going into a game and how they hope to attack with Ed Oliver. I think Star Lotulelei hurt in many ways by him opting out of the season, and one of which was maybe the pressure put on Ed Oliver before he was ready. He is the 9th pick overall, so I don't want to cut him too much slack because it's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. So I think he should be more of a factor than he has been. But hey, if he's heating up now, last week, like you said, great game. If he can continue that upward trend, which he has, I think he started this year a little slow. And really, second half of the year, he's really been climbing each week. If he continues that, then I think it's gonna be a great sign for the Bills. Hopefully, that continues this weekend, tomorrow night.
Okay, great point on that one. And you're right; he did start the year slow. He had that knee injury, so we'll see if that maybe he's totally healthy. We got a great point. Can we pause the shout out for Adam's hat? Yes, you may. We just paused. All right. One thing that's been thrown around a lot this year to sort of tack on to Michael's Ed Oliver point is that this year Ed Oliver is the star Lotulelei or Lotulelei. I never know how to say that properly. But is that true? Zach, you're kind of our in-depth guy. I mean, is he playing that one technique? Is it really the same? I mean, I feel like you're hearing that a lot. Maybe that's excusing a lack of statistics. And there are times I agree, and there are times I'm kind of looking sideways and like, well, kind of. What are you seeing out there, Zach?
Well, I would say that the answer to this is yes and no. I say yes, he is this year's Star Lotulelei because he's playing that one technique, that guy who takes up multiple blockers, which is out of position. It is actually impacting his statistics, and I think that's part of the reason why everyone's down on him this year because of the lack of numbers. But I would also say, no, he's not our Star Lotulelei because he's just not built like him. While he is playing the one technique, he's not a true run stuffer. And I think, again, that kind of circles back to part of the reason he's been perceived as struggling this year. I mean, he kind of is, but also I think it's because of the way the defense is using him. But also they kind of had to out of necessity because Lotulelei opted out. And obviously, I think a lot of Bills fans would agree now that we took Lotulelei for granted over the past couple of years. I mean, obviously, he's being paid a lot of money for not a lot of stats, but we realize what impact he actually has on defense. And Ed Oliver he's doing his best. It's been pretty solid this year. Unfortunately, he's still not the same. And it's also kind of funny, like when you think about like Justin Zimmer, how he emerged and had been really good in the run stuffing game as well. Obviously, yeah. I miscast him when I did my article about him being the next Star Lotulelei. I probably should have aimed for Kyle Williams instead, but I mean, Star Lotulelei is good at his job, and Ed Oliver is good at his job, but he's also proving he's performing admirably in relief of him.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what the Bills do in the offseason. I think a lot of people were upset we didn't try to make a move for a big one technique, a taekwondo class, big man. Jeff King, one of our super chatters. Thank you, Jeff. We really appreciate it. He asked a question about the defense, and since we're on that topic, let's stick with it. He says, guys, what's up with Epenesa? Is he not what they expected, or is it they are happy with whom they have at edge? Just curious, because the entire NFL was calling him a steal in the draft. Now, that's a great question. let me start here because I like Epenesa. I like him a lot. I've liked what he's shown. Now he's being used in a limited capacity, but I will say he's had a few mental lapses and he's still learning the position. But he does seem to set the edge pretty well. He's starting to learn how to use those long arms and strength to sort of push the tackle, which seems to be his move. He strikes me as he has like a higher ceiling version of Trent Murphy in him. Mitch, let me see. What do you think about that take? Is that fair, or are you down on Epenesa?
No, I agree with you. I think that's probably what the Bills were hoping when they drafted him, and I think that he has been playing a lot better recently. I thought he played a pretty good game last week, to be honest. And with Epenesa, I don't want to speculate here or anything, but from what I can see visually, it seems like he is down a lot of weight than what he was last year at Iowa. So part of me is wondering if the Bills kind of wanted to kind of transform his body, because some people thought that maybe he'd be better as a D tackle, and he does not look like a D tackle at all right now. So, you got to wonder if that has been an added adjustment to his, to him coming to the NFL. But, with Epenesa, it's taken some time. I think that we also maybe, might have underestimated the importance of how that spring and summer are for these rookies. The fact they didn't have any of that, definitely, I think for D lineman, probably, showed its ugly side, earlier in the year with Epenesa. But he's coming along, and the fact that they were, they put Trent Murphy as an inactive last week and gave Epenesa a load of snaps, and I think that is an encouraging thing to see, and he's definitely trending in the right direction. So I'm not too worried about Epenesa. I think he'll be just fine. He just got off to a slow start this season as a rookie, but he's starting to pick it up now, which is, what matters most. So
I feel Epenesa is coming on good. As fans, we want microwave food. McDermott cooks in the oven at 350. It's a good way to avoid soggy defensive linemen. Just saying. Guys, let's shift gears here. Zach, you wrote a piece this week that is coming out right after this podcast vidcast about Sean McDermott and him in sort of coach power ranking. And what I'd like to do for a moment is talk a little bit about where McDermott ranks right now among NFL coaches, because there's always those coaches we talk about as sort of like your top tier. Sean Payton, I think, has really proven the way he's handled backup quarterbacks the past couple of years. He's up there. Of course, Belichick. Kyle Shanahan gets a lot of praise, though, his record as a 49ers coach is, that being said, he certainly can get a lot done. Pete Carroll, et cetera, et cetera. Zach, let's start with you. Where would you put McDermott on the sort of NFL coaches power rankings? Like where roughly? And what do you think he does well? And where do you think he struggles?
Well, I would definitely say, obviously for all of you listening, stay tuned for the piece. You'll know exactly where I put him, probably within the first 5 seconds of looking at it. But I would say he is definitely one of the top 5 coaches in the league at this moment.
Wow.
He's a great motivator. If you saw those clips from inside the NFL, he makes fans want to go out on the field and suit up and run down the field to try to make a tackle. He's that good a motivator. And he's proven that he created this great culture in 3 years, and it's really paying dividends with the fact that we've been in the playoffs soon to be 3 out of the last 4 years. And as for what he could work on, well, I think all Bills fans know what he can work on. I'll just briefly list the Festivus grievances with him.
Uh-oh.
Hail Mary defense. They need to teach them to just bat the ball down. I mean, it's really not – I don't think it's that hard to do. But also he's getting better at game management. I noticed that was something he kind of struggled with over the first couple of years, trying to figure out how to run 2-minute offense, second half. He's getting better. Obviously, the third quarters are a bugaboo, but I think it's getting better as the season's gone on. Just like with the defense, it may take a little time. As long as you're playing your best at the end of the season, in the postseason, that should be okay. Challenges, McDermott's not really – statistically, he's not that good with the challenges. He's lost a lot more than he's won. I also noticed that just from doing a little research for my article that according to Pro Football Reference, he's only challenged 3 calls this year. And I think part of that I'm not sure if part of that's because they have a designated challenge czar up in the booth telling him when and when not to challenge, or maybe if it's because he's not confident he'd win them anyways. Probably a combination of both. Obviously, it would be nice if he could win more challenges, but I don't think challenges are what's going to ultimately win you games. You just have to execute on the field and make sure you're not in positions where you need those to go your way. But overall, McDermott is a top-tier coach. He's right up there with Andy Reid. He's right up there with Sean Payton. I would argue that Mike Vrabel's also in that top tier as well. He's coming along. He could very well be the next Bill Belichick, as much as I hate to say it, but forewarned. But yeah, he's the top tier. He is right where you want your head coach to be.
Wow. Okay. Zach, bring in the heat.
Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to be our blue cheese, but no, you were our atomic fire sauce today. That was, I don't know if I can agree with it, but I like it. I like it. It's good. You know what? Let's have a little disagreement on that one, just for fun. You know, Mitch, would you mind playing devil's advocate and kind of maybe tamping down Zach's? You know, I mean, I love the take, but you know, let's hear a little bit from the other side of the room here.
Listen, I love McDermott too. I think he's a good coach for sure. I don't know if I can put him in the top 5 yet. I think for McDermott, he's probably top 10, maybe the back end of the top 10. For me, if McDermott wants to be a top 5 coach, I'm going to have to see some postseason success. Ultimately, he's 0-2 as in the playoffs. I know that the teams he's taken to the playoffs they haven't been great necessarily, and this is his best team yet. But in the end of the day, he's 0-2 in the postseason. He's had some of those things lingering, like the third quarter situation, and so I think that with McDermott, I agree with you that I think the culture he's built, the motivator that he is, what he's done as far as how, the narrative has changed about the Bills. I think that definitely has to be recognized. He's done a great job with that. But ultimately, when it's come down to season on the line in the playoffs, the Bills kind of crumbled in both those games in the fourth quarter. So I think that until he shows that he can get it done in the postseason, I can't put him in the top 5 coaches. He's certainly a top 10 coach, but to me, he's not in the same tier as Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Pete Carroll. He's not there yet because those are guys who've won Super Bowls, gotten it done in the postseason, and McDermott hasn't yet. So until then, to me, he's top 10, not top 5.
Oh, boy. All right. So we got a little controversy. Michael, you are the tiebreaker, sir.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? It all falls on your broad shoulders. Let's hear are you more on Team Zach or Team Mitch on this one?
I am more on Team Mitch on this one. Now, I am looking forward, though, Zach, to reading your article, not knowing that he's going to be ranked where he is. I agree with most of what both of you said, except for the obvious, the ranking there. I do think a big knock against McDermott and something that is going to prevent him from being a top 5, aside from, I think if he's top 5, he's going to have to bump out somebody who has won a Super Bowl. So I'm not quite ready to do that either. But the Nathan Peterman decision, which I'm not going to fault him. I'm not going to fault him for trying to looking at Tyrod Taylor and saying, hey, we can do better. Because there is nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of Bills Mafia agree that we could do better than 80% completion, but 165 yards and 1 touchdown, and 9-7 forever. I agree that we could do better than that. And I think we've seen what happens when we have better with Allen, which is maybe you might throw a couple interceptions, but you're going out and you're winning games in the fourth quarter. But the way that he made the decision, which was forcing Nathan Peterman into the starting role mid-season, and the thing is, he doubled down on it again, because if we remember into the following season where they drafted Allen, Peterman ended up winning the contest. Now Peterman was good in the preseason, but to roll him out 2 years in a row and to make that decision over again, I think was a big mistake. I think one of McDermott's flaws, and I do think belief in your players is a big thing, but I think sometimes he has a little bit, the unwavering faith that he has on his players, I think sometimes might work against him and might hurt him. And Peterman would be a perfect example. Continue to roll the guy out, even though he's shown that he's not ready. I do love McDermott, best Bills coach since Levy, obviously, and he has an opportunity to do some great things for this team that Levy never did. But I'd agree more with Mitch. I'd probably say between 10 to 15th in the league. I definitely have him ranked.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has a lot of potential. You know what he reminds me of? He makes me think of like the Sean McVay of defense. Like, I think he has a lot that he can do defensively to scare you. He's underrated as a schemer. You can tell, particularly when he gets aggressive. And you've seen that the last few weeks. I've enjoyed the aggression. Is this sort of Jim Johnson influence? And if you guys, I don't know how old you guys are, but you probably remember Eagles defensive coordinator Jim Johnson. He was as responsible for those great Eagles teams in the early 2000s as Andy Reid was. I mean, he took a no-name defense and really made them great. And McDermott learned at his feet. So you see a little Jim Johnson, that double A gap blitz that he loves to do. But I think that, you know, as much as I want to agree with Zach, I'm not quite there. I'll say he's just outside the top 5. With so much potential, though. One thing I like about McDermott is he hits benchmarks. You know, first year, get us to the playoffs, right? That's so important. We've been waiting so long. You know, this year, we finally beat the Patriots, slayed the dragon. I feel like you see him come against obstacles and he solves them. Maybe not immediately. You know, he was 0-6 against the Patriots before this year, but when the time came, he did it. One thing I like is he doesn't lose to inferior teams. Or rarely. And, you know, that's something to knock on like a Mike Tomlin, where Tomlin always drops a game or two. And so there are a lot of things I like about McDermott. I do agree he's got to win a playoff game, you know, and hopefully that's a benchmark he hits this year. We probably should have won against the Texans, and I do think some of the third quarter coaching is on him. I also feel like defensively they often come out flat in the beginning of the game. I feel like it's getting a little better, but you guys have seen the last few years, the opposing team will come out and just roll down the field, but then the defense starts to figure it out. Like against the Cowboys, for example, last year. The Cowboys came out just destroying us, and all of a sudden we figured it out. So I like McDermott. I'm high on him, you know. But I love the take, Michael, that he is the best coach since Marv Levy, and it's hard to argue with that one. Anybody disagree with that point?
No.
Okay, wow, we're in unison on that one. Guys, we've already talked about defense, and you know, let's see. We got 716 Truth. He also agrees. McDermott, best coach we've had since Marv Levy. But let's get this straight. McDermott is not Marv Levy, okay? Marv Levy is here. McDermott, he's good, but he's no Marv Levy, okay? Not yet, at least. He's got a ways to go. All right, guys, we've already talked off defense. Let's talk a little offense. We've got no John Brown this week. We have seen an uptick in the running game the last little while, and also in correlation, we've also seen Feliciano back and Mitch Morse last week. Mitch, is there any coincidence there? And do you see them continuing to be a more balanced attack on offense?
I mean, I don't think there's a coincidence. I mean, also not to mention, you know, McDermott talked about over the bye getting that run game going, and it definitely was going against the Chargers. So I don't think it's a coincidence. They got ultimately, you know, I think Feliciano's turned into be one of the more valuable players on that offense. That line plays way different with him in there. And I think with Morse at center, it just gives them, you know, so much versatility, what he can do. He's so athletic more. So I think in the run game, he's crucial. So I don't think it's, you know, much of a coincidence with those two, you know, in the lineup that the run game's gotten better. And, you know, I think on top of it, you know, I think Zach Moss is starting to really kind of find his footing a little bit, you know, versus what we kind of saw earlier in the season. I think the game has slowed down for him, which is helping for sure, because he brings, you know, a nice, you know, a little bit of nastiness in that run game. So I don't think it's too much of a coincidence. And, you know, ultimately, you know, people talk about December, January football, you know, you do need to be able to run the ball a little bit. And we know that this Bills team, they're pass first. They're going to always be pass first, but it can't be, you know, a 99% pass and 1% run like it was at some games, you know, earlier this season. I think if they can get to being a little bit more balanced, that definitely will benefit in the playoffs, just because it gives the defense, you know, that they're playing against a little bit more to think about, you know, as far as what they need to defend. So I think it's good that the run game's getting back on its feet. But this is still a pass-first team in the end of the day.
Well, you're right on that one, Mitch. We're getting a little bit of hate for my boy Marv Levy. I wouldn't say hate, but, I take it personally. Mr. Jeff King, he says, guys, you got to remember with Levy, they were able to keep that entire team intact for years because he wasn't faced with free agency like today. McDermott is the man right now, like his vision for the team. No argument there. Crazy Killer, 30. Still ain't happy about those 4 Super Bowl appearances and no wins, etc., etc., etc. Guys, I appreciate it, but Sean McDermott has never said, come on, guys, let's knock their asses off, all right? So when he does that, mic'd up, then I'll back you up on that one. Michael, what do you I loved Mitch's point about Zach Moss starting to pick it up, that offensive line maybe coming together. A question about Brian Winters. Do the Buffalo Bills not know where the trash can is?
Yeah, they might not on that one. Honestly, I like the way you said that. Yeah, it might be a situation where they don't know where to find a replacement. So they say, you know what? Instead of finding a replacement part, let's close the trash can, like you said. Let's just avoid it and not get rid of this piece. Yeah, he's struggled. That's a tough one. I like the aggressive nature that Bean was trying with that. Division rival lets go of a starter, a previous starter, and say, hey, let's roll the dice on this guy. But you also have to know when to call it quits on the guy. And at this point, they're not going to. I think they're rolling with them. So let's hope that maybe he can find his groove as well. Maybe having the run game get going will have an effect on him where maybe he'll gain some confidence, whether he's responsible for that run game increase or not. But, listen, I'm just hoping for anything with this guy to show that he can carry us through, because like you said, we're going to have to lean on the run game a little bit going forward. And even in the passing offense, we need him there. So he better start showing up.
Oh boy. Great take on that one. Zach, question for you, kind of a follow-up to Michael's point. Do you think possibly the reason the Bills are keeping Brian Winters out there is twofold? One, is it about continuity? Because we know how important continuity is along the offensive line. And even if he is, not great, to say the least, you think it's about continuity, hoping he kind of pops? And second of all, I think Bills fans notice he's such a liability in pass blocking. But is it possible that he is maybe a much better in the run game? What do you think?
Well, I think everyone already knows my take on Brian Winters from last week's pregame show. But, yeah, I think the only reason he's still in the lineup is because of the continuity. McDermott does seem to like to keep his starters in there. Like, let's remember AJ Klein, when he was struggling and everyone wanted to throw him into Siberia, he stuck with them. And obviously he worked out because he figured it out and they schemed him better. But yeah, with Brian Winters, I think the only reason they really keep him in there is because he's a veteran and because of continuity. Otherwise, I would have said, why not just stick with Ike Bucker at left guard and keep Feliciano at right guard if you wanted to build continuity that way, because he seemed to be doing better than Winters. To answer the second part, I will say he must be better in the run game, because I haven't seen him mess up in the run game. I haven't noticed him in a negative light in the run game. I'm sure he's probably blowing blocks. It's probably just something I haven't seen. But the fact that usually when you see him on the pass blocking, he's either a turnstile or he's clueless of where to look and where to block, I think then he has to have some sort of value for them to keep him in there week after week and to make that continuity decision.
Well, and we've got an interesting question. I want to sort of shift gears here, and that's a great take. DK asks, is Starr missing the season really hurting our defense? I think we really need a big man in the middle eating people. I think that's true. But this also goes for the offense. Certainly we know, we were talking about this earlier when we talked about the defense. Missing Starr has been so key. But let's talk about the Star Lotulele of this offense and missing him. And that is, of course, Mr. John Brown, Smokey Brown, as they call him. I love John Brown. He's my favorite player on the offense right now. I think that dude is the key to so much of the Bills' success this season. We were able to get by last week with more, a better defense, a more explosive run game. But now we're going against a better coach team for sure, and a talented team that's getting a lot of its pieces back, where we may need to put up some points against this Niners run game, particularly because they may chew up the clock. So we may need to score and score fast. What do you think the key will be today to getting that done in the pass game? Michael, I'm going to start with you. Like, how do we handle not having John Brown in the lineup yet again?
Well, Gabriel Davis did a pretty good job last week of stepping in. He had the big catch, and that's where he got most of his stats from. Aside from that, I think it was tough to tell. I kind of view this week as a clean slate, because last week they made it a point to run the ball. They said, we're doing a deep dive into our run game going into the bye, and it seemed like no matter what the costs were last week, they were running the football. So it was really tough to get a good indicator of how much they did struggle without Brown. I think we all know that they might a little bit. They're going to struggle because that's what history has told us. I think the key is going to be Cole Beasley. I was a little disappointed last week in the lack of production from him. But again, I understand that they were trying to force feed the run game and kind of prove to themselves, I think, and maybe, for the rest of the league, they could get it on tape that they can run the ball effectively. And, we'll see if they can do it more than 1 week in a row. But I definitely think, opening up Beasley, giving opportunities to Davis, even Diggs, I thought they need to force, as much as they force fed the run last week, I think they need to continue to force feed Diggs. I think that's only going to mean good things for the offense. He can beat, certainly absolutely beat one-on-one. I'm sure he could beat double teams as well. So they need to continue to not shy away from that. It's going to open up things underneath for Beasley to take advantage, and hopefully just, weather the storm here for another 2 games, hopefully, and then they get Brown back.
All right. And Derek Presti, to follow up, he says, if we can get John Brown back and healthy in time for the playoffs, that will be a huge increase in our offensive power. Guys, we haven't made the playoffs yet. Don't get cocky, kid. This is going to be an interesting game in terms of not just not having John Brown, but Allen definitely seemed to injure his knee/ankle, and that's what he was listed with. Gage Aziz and Alex Lucci both talked about it. They believe it is an MCL sprain, but he did play the rest of the game last week. Mitch, it seems like, not having Brown and possibly not having Allen running the ball, because that is an important part of our offense. What do you think that's going to change in this week's game? How do they compensate?
I think that how they compensate, I think that this could be a big game with Beasley and Diggs as far as just running kind of those short, quick, short. I don't know why I can't talk today, but just getting the ball out of Allen's hand quick, I think is the key. I mean, that Niners front is really talented. They can get after the passer so relentlessly, and I think that if Allen can't run today, I don't know how much you want him to hold on to the ball, and really try to push it down the field. I think if you get Beasley, doing his thing, have Diggs, a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage as far as the depth of his routes, maybe have him running to more, 10 to 15 yards rather than, way down the field. I think that could benefit them. And I also think, maybe some screen passes. The Bills don't run a lot of screens, but we saw a little bit with Singletary last week, and I thought it worked pretty well. It's a good way to, get some guys out in space with some blockers. So I think that they're just going to have to find ways to get the ball out of Allen's hands quick so he doesn't need to take some hits, and that's, maybe how they can kind of compensate for Allen's knee and the loss of Brown, who is a big part of their vertical passing offense. So I think that those are some ways that they could compensate for that.
All right. Vladimir Ostrowski, he says Diggs needs to have a huge game. Forget all this running the ball crap. I like this take. This is good. We have a QB and they don't. Josh needs to step up and win this game. I like your take, Vladimir. I love the passion. And in that vein, and Mitch, I loved your point about the screen game, and certainly Singletary seems capable of that. Moss isn't too bad at it either. Yeah. But Zach, a question I have for you is, the best corner I think on the Niners right now is Richard Sherman. But one thing we know about Sherman is he doesn't travel. So I mean, how much do you think that's going to be in Daboll's mind as he's dialing up plays for Diggs today?
I think that will definitely be in his mind. Like, you have to consider the fact that if he's staying on one side, it's kind of like with Tre'Davious White, where he is that number one corner, but it seems like he always stays on the one side of the field. So then you automatically think, maybe I should put my number one receiver on the number two corner, try to create a mismatch. But I still think that this team has the confidence in their passing game to even go after Richard Sherman. Like, remember in the Super Bowl, Richard Sherman was burnt by, who was it? Was it Tyreek Hill or Sammy Watkins? One of them, or maybe both of them at different points in the game, late in the game. So obviously, it's one thing to avoid the number one corner and take the easy stuff, but I think also the Bills are the type of team where they want to prove that they can go after your best defenders. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot of Diggs and Sherman this week. Or even a lot of Diggs. Obviously, they'll probably also put Diggs on the other side too, and we'll see Diggs on the number two corner. But I think they may even try to throw right at Sherman, see if we could get some of those demoralizing plays where the 49ers think, well, they're destroying our number one corner. What are we going to do?
Okay. I mean, great take. Speaking of, we've had some surprise game day inactives, healthy scratches, so they say. Mitch, I'm going to start with you. Anybody you see as a healthy scratch this game? I mean, we had Tyler Kroft a couple times this year. We've had, some different players. Who do you think might be not playing in Monday's game? Because we have almost everybody healthy, so there's going to have to be some players that sit down.
I mean, I think it could very well be Trent Murphy once again. I mean, I think that Epenesa is playing a lot better. They like Darryl Johnson as well. Mcdermott mentioned him throughout the week as well. And, Harrison Phillips, albeit, he hasn't played great this season. But once again, I mean, you would like to use him against a run-heavy team. I mean, we're starting to see him, stray away from Trent Murphy, which, again, makes a question why they kept him on the roster to begin with. But, again, we'll leave that for another time. But I think that Trent Murphy's a guy that could find himself as a healthy scratch because of the way Epenesa is playing. And like I said, I think that, he's been in and out of the lineup as far as being, active and inactive. Every week it seems to kind of be a toss-up with him. So I would not be surprised to see him inactive once again.
That's fair. Really quick, let's go around the room with that. Zach, do you see anybody that might be inactive or somebody you think that should be inactive?
Well, I would say if I had to pick someone that should be inactive, it should be Brian Winters. But we already discussed the whole continuity thing. I'll set that aside. I would say last week I was surprised that Kroft was inactive. I thought he was like their best tight end. Not a knock against Dawson Knox. I mean, that toe tap swag touchdown at the beginning of the game was very impressive. Mm-hmm. But he still hasn't really been that effective. Even though it seems like McDermott and company are giving him every single opportunity to do something. And if you're going to try to run the ball, I think you'd rather have Tyler Kroft as that blocking tight end. Mm-hmm. Dawson Knox missed quite a few blocks in that game against the Chargers. So I would say, I guess I'm talking myself into saying that Knox maybe should be the surprise inactive this week.
All right, Michael, I'm going to come to you. But first, we're getting toward the end. So I want, Michael, you to give me your game day prediction for Monday night. Who's going to win this game? Do you see any scores? How do you see the scores coming down? So let's start with you. You can start with your inactives commentary and then give us your prediction for Monday night's game.
All right. Actually, both players I wanted to talk about were already mentioned. So we'll talk about what Mitch mentioned first with Trent Murphy. I totally agree that they were going to make him inactive for nearly half the season. Then why pay him the bonus that he was set to be paid? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Coaches say he is more to the team than just the number. Okay, we'll take him at face value at that. But I actually see them not scratching Murphy in this game just because of what I mentioned before, where I think that they are going to do whatever they can to stop the 49ers run, and having him in the game, as many defensive linemen as possible, I think is going to play into that game plan. So I would actually agree with Zach then, and I would make Dawson Knox inactive. I have not been a fan of Dawson Knox last playoff game, I think he missed. I'm still thinking back to, I think it's a screen grab that's just burned in my memory of the overtime. I think Allen was trying a run to the right, and he just absolutely whiffed on a block. And I think if he makes that block, they win the game. But of course, I'm going back nearly a year now. I'm still not over that, obviously. But I have not been pleased with Dawson Knox for the reasons that Zach mentioned. So I would be more than happy to see him hopefully try to wake him up by making him inactive. I think McDermott likes to do that with some of his younger players to kind of give them a jump start and wake them up. So hopefully he's next for that. As far as the prediction goes, I'll give you the prediction I wrote about in my preview piece. I have the Bills winning this game 28-20. I think what you mentioned, Adam, actually about McDermott not losing to inferior teams, especially inferior quarterbacks, I think is very important. And also something we didn't get a chance to talk about, but I do think plays a huge role in this game, is that the 49ers are the home team, but they're really not. I think having to travel for a home game and getting out of that routine, having to stay in a hotel, having to not, wake up with your family that morning and drive to the stadium, I think that's going to play a huge role in this game. And I do think the Bills going to be close, but I do think the Bills will come out on top on this one.
Great take, Michael. And you want to definitely check out his pregame piece on the BuffaloFanatics.com. You'll get lots of information and matchup stuff with that. Great job on that. Zach, really quick, we're running out of time. I want to get your prediction for tomorrow's game.
Well, I would say that I agree with everyone that I think the Bills are going to win. I don't totally get why people are saying. I guess I understand why people are saying this could be a trap game. So that's why I think it's not going to necessarily be as big of a deficit as what Bills fans probably would want in a primetime game. I would say the Bills win 31-21 because the Niners are a pretty good team. They will eventually score points. I just think the Bills are so much better and so much more healthy that it's going to make that big of a difference, and that the Bills will find a way to run it and pass the ball on the 49ers defense. All
right. Mitch, let's get to you with your prediction for the game. Who you see, and again, we talked about it a little bit. The Niners are at home in Arizona. Who do you see winning this game? What's the final score?
You know what? This game is reminding me a lot of last year's Steelers game, actually, where, as Michael said, talked about, an inferior quarterback. I mean, I remember that game. Everybody was talking about Pittsburgh, but kind of forgot that Duck Hodges was the quarterback, and the Bills made him look like a third-string quarterback. And I think that maybe they're not going to force 4 interceptions, but I think that they are going to make Nick Mullins look like a backup quarterback tomorrow night. I think it's going to be a very similar game to that. I'm going to go pretty low scoring, 20-14 Bills win. I think it's going to be a lot of running, a lot of defense. I don't think it's going to be the prettiest of games, but I do think that when it comes down to it, Buffalo's got the better quarterback, and that's going to prove them right. And I think they're going to get this one done.
Oh boy, a lot of positivity in the Buffalo Fanatics writers room about this game. I like your take, Mitch. I have a different take. I'm going to say I think the Niners are going to win. I hate to say it, but I trust the Shanahan run scheme. I don't trust the Bills' run defense. I mean, I'm excited about how healthy they are, but I think this is going to be an ugly game. I don't love that it's in primetime, and I don't love that it's in Arizona, where we seem to have a curse, potentially. We'll see. I'm picking the Niners to win 21-17, and I think the reason is going to be because the Bills will lose the turnover battle. I think that's going to be the key. I think the Niners are going to protect the ball, and they're going to do everything they can to keep Nick Mullins from ruining the game from them. I don't see them becoming one-dimensional. I think Shanahan knows that. The Bills are going to try to stop the run game, and he's just going to keep coming at them. And that's going to add up in the third and fourth quarter. It's going to be key to avoid turnovers. So I got the Niners winning this one in a low-scoring affair. but I hope I'm wrong. Guys, let's do one last around the horn. Tell us what you do writing for the BuffaloFanatics.com. Start with you, Zach, real quick.
Well, every week I do a individual player profile where I take one of the outstanding players from the Bills in that week's game and compare them to either earlier in the season or other players from Bills recent or long-term Bills history. Those usually come out on Tuesdays, but with the Monday night game, that could very well be delayed a little bit this week. But anyways, you can also follow me on Twitter. I post stuff all week long at zvaughn2712.
Okay. Real quick, Michael, tell us about a little bit what you do on the BuffaloFanatics.com.
Yep, on the Fanatics, I write the pregame pieces. So I take a look back at the recent history of matchups between the two teams and kind of dive into that a little bit, give a little analysis, and then look at some keys to the game for both teams, and then finally give a prediction. So those come out on Friday morning, so I'd appreciate your views on that. And I'm on Twitter at @M_Lefave.
Okay, and finally, Mitch, let's say, what about you? What do you do for the BuffaloFanatics.com?
So I write the Thursday Thought column that comes out every Thursday, 1 o'clock. I just kind of come with a topic, give you my take on it, and like to see what you guys reactions are for that as well. So definitely give that a read every Thursday, and give me a follow on Twitter at Mitchell_Broder. I'd appreciate that for sure. So yeah.
All right, great job, guys. Thank you all for watching. Listen, make sure you stay tuned, because up next we have fantasy and betting advice with a couple of podcast types. We in the writers' room have been making the podcasters look bad for a few weeks now. Looking swanky. Not saying they dress like bums, but I'm not saying that. You know what I'm saying? So thank you for listening, and we will see you guys next week. Go Bills!
What's going on?
What up?
I guess we should talk about Derek's comment. I really want to talk about Scott Blakely's comment saying,
"Yeah, I want to talk about Scott's comment."
Right, come on, man. Yeah, put it up there. I love it because I think Scott last week said the same thing. Right?
Yeah, I think he did.
I think he did. Man, Scott, I don't know what's going on, dude. Like, come hang out with me. Like, let's just chill. But if you're gonna say F fantasy, you might as well just put the whole word in there. Be an adult. We're all adults here. Just throw the word in there. Let us know how you really feel. But Derek, we really appreciate you. From the Bills Mafia fan base to you all, thanks for all you guys do. And then a couple of Italian.
Can real quick?
emojis.
Can we add one more thing to the things that you do?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
It's just a quick little spelling bee.
Sure.
Just let me know what this spells. Mostert.
Mercer.
Oh, sorry, yeah, whatever. You're a lost cause.
Oh, I feel awful this morning. I feel bad. I feel awful. Hey, fun fact. So my alarm went off again this morning, telling me to wake up, right? And my wife said, "What are you doing?" This is week 13, guys. This is week 13. We've been doing this.
Week. Right? This is playoffs now.
Is it?
I know it is for my league. I guess it depends on what type of league you have. If you have the type of league that does double week for playoffs, then yeah, this should be playoff week for you. But
Yeah.
I guess there could be another week or two depending on what type of league you're in.
So in one of my leagues, I completely dropped it. Like I just stopped looking at it.
That's the excuse I would use too.
Well, here's the thing, right? When you're in so many leagues and you notice that you're going to lose one league, I just quit paying attention to it, right?
No, see, I'm a fighter personally. I'm personally a fighter, and I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to win every league I'm in.
I'm not.
And if
I start losing, I start trading my players away. I'm like, hey, man.
No, you're one of those.
Hey man,
no.
How much money would you give?
And
me
you
for,
were calling for a new
George Kittle.
No, see, you can't say that a week after you're calling
yes,
for
I
a
can.
co-host. Come on.
Yeah, I can. So, I thought that was gonna be a funny text that I just got. It wasn't. My best friend talking about some house he got inspected. Like I don't care. He doesn't watch this show, so I can say stuff like that. All right, guys, what's going on? We're gonna talk about. So obviously the Bills don't play until Monday, right? The Bills don't play till Monday. We're gonna talk about fantasy, and we're gonna go through some spreads for gambling. So if you're a gambling person, if you're a betting man or woman, right, get ready because we're gonna walk through every single game and talk about fantasy and gambling for those games. First thing that I do want to talk about is Nap, your mustache. What's up? What's up with it? What are you doing?
All right, so I was waiting for you to comment on that. I thought you were going to say something sooner.
No.
So I kind of got myself stuck in a little situation.
Okay.
And it's not one that I actually need to be in. It's one that's just in my own mind. So Friday.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, let me tell the story real quick, and then we'll.
Right.
So Friday, I just did it because why not? I don't know, whatever. I was bored.
Sure.
So I did it, just shaved it into a mustache, and it's a terrible mustache. I'm very well aware of that. It looks
it's pretty bad.
It looks bad. And I've just been waiting all weekend for my girlfriend to say something about it, and she hasn't. And so now I'm just waiting. I'm stuck. I got myself, and that's why I said I'm stuck in my own mind here because I told myself I was gonna keep it until she said something. So I wasn't planning on having it for this.
But that's wild because that's kind of like me. My hair is getting longer, so I went and I found my wife's hair ties that pushed her hair back. And last night I pushed all my hair back and I had this hair tie on. And she just kind of stared at me. Yeah, she's not used to having long hair, because I was in the military for 9 years, so she's not used to long hair.
See, I didn't even get that treatment of somebody staring.
Sorry. Football.
Okay.
Oh, so sorry.
Nobody cares about our personal lives here.
We haven't talked to each other all week. All right, let's jump into it. For a second. There's a couple of games that I do actually want to talk about, and I think we start. With the Jets and Las Vegas game, right? And I know that a lot of people don't want to talk about New Jersey, right? And I don't like talking about New Jersey either, but I think this is a gambling
unless it wins you money.
Yes, I think this is a gambling gold rush here. I honestly think it is because anytime you need a bounce back game like Las Vegas does after getting embarrassed by Atlanta, anytime you need a bounce back game, it's really awesome to play against the New York Jets. Right. So let's talk about Derek Carr and his fantasy aspects. If you're going into the playoffs and all that good stuff. So you got Derek Carr, you got all the skill position players there. Darren Waller, you've got Nelson Aguilar, which by the way, it's criminal looking at his over under when you look at everything because he's averaging around 50 yards per game and his over under is around 39. So it's pretty criminal when you look at it like that. And then of course Henry Ruggs. What are the implications of Henry Ruggs and what is he going to be doing for Las Vegas? Is he someone that if you have on your bench, are you starting him for, say, the 2 weeks of playoffs? Because you can't change your players during those 2 weeks. So
depending on the league,
it depends on the league, right? And in the leagues that I play, you can't change your players. Now there was one year where you could change your players and it blew my ever loving mind, right? But let's say you can't change your players. Are you starting Henry Ruggs for those 2 weeks? What are you thinking, especially during the Jets?
In terms of fantasy. I don't actually love most of the players. I wouldn't mind playing Derek Carr, but I don't want to play anybody from the Jets or the Raiders this week in fantasy, really, unless I guess Darren Waller too. But I don't like the wide receivers because you just don't know who's going to get the ball. Ruggs is the type of guy who
it's a bomb or it's not a bomb.
It's hit or miss. You're either going to get something really big from him, or he's probably not going to be that involved. And then you have Aguilar, who like you're probably going to have somebody else who could play above him. I mean,
that's fair.
There's two guys I think that could play from that game, and it's Derek Carr and it's Darren Waller.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'd probably stay away from anybody else because Josh Jacobs is out. He's not playing.
Correct. Well,
that's killing me because he's out this week. He might be back next week. So if you're in a league that can do both, then that's fine. But like for me, I can't play him this week because he's out.
But what I was gonna say was the fact that we shit on the Jets a lot, right? And we should because they're a terrible, terrible, terrible team, right? But the one thing they do good in, right? Besides
is the run defense.
It's the run defense,
yes.
Right? It's the front. I'm going to say front four because I'm not going to give the linebackers a pass on this one. But their front four, that defensive line is a beast, right? They do really good with this run defense, right? So with that being said, anytime you have a running back that is playing against the Jets, I don't start them. I learned that lesson, right?
Especially since their pass defense is so bad, the team should be able to take advantage.
You should be throwing it all day long. Now, with that being said, you mentioned it. Josh Jacobs is out. What about Devin Booker? Are you handcuffing him in fantasy this week? Right? I never liked the term handcuffing. Right? Oh, if the starter's out, let's put it in his backup. Like the backup's going to be like 10 times better than the starter. No, go find somebody else. But are you starting Devin Booker? Right? Because he
if you're in a really, really deep league, if you're in like a 14-team league, pick him up, yeah. But he's already probably picked up by now. If he's available and you're in a 14-team league, you might as well take a flyer on him because, I mean, he's going to get touches. Whether it ends up working out this week, I don't think it probably will because the Jets, like you said, the Jets have a really good run defense. So
yeah, they do.
Pick him up on a flyer, but definitely don't rely on him to be like a really big production back.
So I want to move on, right? I do, but I want to talk about what is if we're trying to win money, right? If we're trying to win money this weekend, right? Which Judge so clearly needs money that he's going to make us quit talking about facial
me too,
hair.
Judge. Me too. Desperately.
But if we're going to win money, I'm going to give you a couple of good bets for this Las Vegas game, right? Now, it's going to be Derek Carr over 252 passing yards, right? You're going to go ahead and bundle him in, and you're going to bundle in Darren Waller over 53.5 receiving yards, okay? And you're also going to take the Raiders money line, right? Those three, put $5 on it, you're probably going to win around $60, $70. So you can turn $5 into $70. That's what I would do. Now, if you want my full parlay, I'm going to run through them really quickly, right? And then we're going to move on to, I want to talk about the Atlanta Saints game is the next one because we also have somebody asked
I was going to say, let's hit up those two comments that we have too.
Right?
Yeah.
So I want to jump to the Atlanta and the Falcons game. So I'm going to run through this quickly, right? So I got Derek Carr over 252.5 passing yards, which should be a given because of the fact that the Jets have a really strong defensive line. When it comes to the run game, they're going to have to pass it a lot, right? So because of that, I also have Henry Ruggs over 29.5 receiving yards, Nelson Aguilar over 39.5 receiving yards, Sam Darnold under 220.5 passing yards. Now, this one's a big one, right? Sam Darnold has not passed for over 220 yards all season long. I get that he was out for a little bit, but he hasn't passed for that all season long. I think they're going to try to establish the run game with Frank Gore, which leads me into the next one, which is Frank Gore over 61.5 rushing yards. Now, a lot of people have this whole thing like, when I first saw this, I said Frank Gore's not doing it, but he is averaging over 60 yards in the past couple of games. So I'm going to run with it. It seems like the Jets are trying to establish the run. And then I've got Darren Waller over 53.5 receiving yards and under 46.5. I put $5 down on it, hoping to win about $400. All those seem very, very doable. But what I would do is I'd take the guarantees, which is the Derek Carr over 252, the Darren Waller over 53.5, and the Raiders money line. Throw $5 on it, and you're going to win some money. That's what I would do. If you want money, if you're ready to rock and roll, that's where we'd go. So let's jump into the Saints and the Atlanta game. So where was that comment? Bryson
_17. Yeah, there we go. Todd Gurley or Dobbins at flats.
I like Todd Gurley. I think he gets a lot of the goal line touches. J.K. Dobbins, what has he done in fantasy for you this year?
I think this is an interesting one just because Gurley has kind of tailed off a little bit recently. I know he was hurt last week, so he's coming off of a minor knee injury, like very minor knee injury.
Yeah.
The Saints defense is kind of good. He didn't do all that well against them when they went up against each other 2 weeks ago, but that's partially because he did get hurt in that game. I normally would go with Dobbins here because the Ravens are such a run-heavy offense. But where I kind of pause, and I'm not totally sure, so I kind of want you to talk through this one a little bit too. The Redskins have a really good the football team. The football team. They got a really good front seven.
They do. They really do.
And even more than their front seven, like their defensive line specifically, really good. So I'm hesitant to roll with Dobbins here, more because of that than because of what either of them have done personally.
Yeah. Are they playing? Are they playing the football team?
Or am I mixing up Baltimore and I am. I'm mixing up Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I was about to say.
No, roll with Dobbins. Roll with Dobbins. He's going up against the Cowboys. Yeah.
Well,
what am I thinking?
Now
I was mixing up two teams.
Dobbins is coming off the inactive COVID list, right?
That's fine. It's not an official injury, and as far as I know, he didn't have symptoms.
Sure. But what has he done? What is he? I'm looking up his stats right now because I like J.K. Dobbins coming out of the draft, but
best running back in the draft.
I really think so, and I want the Bills to actually draft him. His game is so inconsistent. I'm looking at it now. I mean,
it depends on how many touches he gets.
Yeah, I mean, you had against Tennessee, 15 attempts, 70 yards, 1 touchdown. That's awesome. Then you got against New England, 5 attempts, 13 yards, nothing. And then you have against Indy, you had 12 touches, 30 yards. It's just inconsistent. And not to say that Todd Gurley's any better, right? I just think when Atlanta gets down to the goal line, they're giving it to Todd Gurley. That's the whole reason they brought him in. So because of that, I'm going to roll with Todd Gurley. Look, J.K. Dobbins is going to
I got it. I'll let you roll with that one.
But I'm gonna go with Todd Gurley just because he's showing a little bit more over here. Now, if you want to take a flyer, right, I think J.K. Dobbins could get you a ton more points. The potential is there to do that. So if you're feeling frisky, go ahead and jump. But if you want to feel safe, I think Todd Gurley is the way to go.
If Gurley ends up playing the whole game, then it's – no, you're right. I was way off on that. My whole mindset on that, as soon as I saw it, was that they were playing the football team, and that was completely wrong. I was just totally mixing up them and the Steelers. So ignore everything that I said.
I like this one. Before I get to Mr. Money, I like your name, by the way. We should get together and we should talk money. Mr. Money, before I get to your comment about Lazard, T.Y. Hilton, and Michael Pittman, right? I think that's something that Knapp needs to calculate, right, real quick. Before I get to your comment, I want to talk about this game. Like, who is going to win, right? Because the Saints don't have Drew Brees. The Saints have a good defense. Lo and behold, they have a good defense. But do they have a good offense, right? I talk trash about Sean Payton because Sean Payton is glorified as this great offensive mind, but I don't think he really honestly helps players progress, right? I think he might draft a stud, a blue chip player, and all of a sudden they do become good. But what about the 6th round, 7th round picks, right? Is he really progressing that, offense? And the reason why I say that is because who are the playmakers? You have 1, 2 playmakers. That's all there ever is on the Saints offense, right? You have one good wide receiver. Now you have a good running back in the past couple of years, but you haven't really helped progress anybody else in this offense. You always have a 6th or 7th round pick or an undrafted guy that comes out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, Sean Payton really likes him, but the next year he's not there anymore. What is going on? Why can't you do anything for that offense, right? And you lean heavily on 1 or 2 players, right? To me, that's not an offensive genius, right? That's just somebody who has really good players who's like, got to give the ball to him, right? That's what I see in that. So I criticize Sean Payton a lot. Not that I could do any better because I'm just some guy at home, right? But I don't like saying he's an offensive genius. Now, he has this new toy, as the announcers say, which is Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill is going against an Atlanta defense that, honestly, Knapp, I actually like, and it's maddening.
Really?
It's maddening, right?
When did that change? Because I know earlier in the season, both of us were on the train of like, if you're playing against Atlanta, find a guy again on the other team and play them. So when did that change for you?
I'm trying to think of the game that they were playing. Was it the Denver game? It was some game, right? That for some reason the Atlanta defense just clicked. Right, and you started seeing the linebackers start flying around. They have a linebacker that I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce his name, but the dude is a stud, right? That defensive line is actually coming together. The only problem with Atlanta is actually their back end, their cornerbacks and their defensive backs, right? And they are trying to rectify that. But if they can keep everything in front, right, they actually have a chance. So this defense is maddening to me because I feel like it has so much potential to be a really good defense, but they're so young that it's like, oh, mental mistake, and all of a sudden you got Taysom Hill running for 75 yards, right? So in my mind, what do you think that these guys can win? Do you think Atlanta can beat the Saints today? Because you're expecting the way Taysom Hill is going to win. Once again, this is in my mind. The way Taysom Hill is going to win against Atlanta, you're going to have to throw the ball. You're going to have to throw the ball. So do you think Taysom Hill is going to go out there and beat by the way, a really good Saints or Atlanta offense? So he's going to have to keep up with Matt Ryan. If Matt Ryan clicks today, so Matt Ryan's either hot or cold. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I'm going to start off here. I think it's interesting that you were criticizing Sean Payton so heavily because literally just in the last hour, I think it was Zach, one of the writers, was talking about how he thinks that Sean Payton might be, or maybe it was Adam, I can't remember which one of them it was, but one of them was talking about how they think that Sean Payton is possibly the best coach or like one of the top 2 or 3 coaches in the NFL. So I thought it was interesting that you were criticizing him so much there.
I love Zach. He's an awesome guy. If you haven't read any of his pieces, make sure you do, and you go to thebuffalofanatics.com and check out. Zach has a brilliant mind. Adam has a brilliant mind. Mitch has a brilliant mind. All those guys in the writers' room, they have a brilliant mind. So if they said that, that's fine. They're just wrong.
All right, so I just wanted to start off there, but in terms of like the actual game, I like both offenses.
Did you see that comment?
Names.
Ooh, got me. You know what, Judge? Go back to sleep.
Merstert.
Keep going.
You would never win a spelling bee.
No, not a chance.
I like Atlanta's offense, but like you said, the Saints defense is really good. I think it just depends on how involved they can get their 2 guys on offense. Can Taysom Hill get Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara? I totally blanked on his name. Yeah, Kamara. If he can get those 2 involved, then yeah, I think they win. I think it's close though. So in terms of like gambling lines, I would actually take Atlanta to cover, but I still think the Saints win. So I think it's going to be a really close game because the Saints offense is not as high powered without Drew Brees running it the way it's supposed to be run. Like they're running a variation of their offense with Taysom Hill, but they're still a good enough team. They still have the guys on both offense and defense to get the job done. And to your point of like they only have a couple of guys, like they only have Michael Thomas and Kamara. Traquan Smith is still another guy. Like he's not a big name player, but when Michael Thomas was out, he was getting the job done for them. So like he's another guy who they can rely on if they need to. And it matters even more because he's a wide receiver and not a running back.
Yeah, I mean, he won't be there next year because he'll get lost in the shuffle or something. Something will happen. But I think that if Atlanta stops the run, and I say that very lightly because you're not stopping Alvin Kamara, right? But if you stop the run, slow down the run. Let's say slow down the run. You're probably going to win this game. Like 100%.
But they can still see the thing with the Saints is that like their running game isn't what like they can get Kamara involved in the passing game still. So it's not like you just slow down the run, then Kamara's out of the game. They line him up everywhere. Outside, slot. They run screens to him. Like they can get him involved in so many different ways that I don't know if stopping the run when you have as bad of a secondary, as bad of a passing defense as Atlanta has, I don't know if stopping the run is going to be enough with the type of weapons that the Saints have.
What I'm talking about is slowing down the run and stopping Taysom Hill more than Alvin Kamara, right? Because if you're forcing Taysom Hill to pass, he's not going to get the job done. Sorry, he's just not. Whoever said that he's like the next great quarter, like you're wrong. Like
that was Sean Payton, by the way.
Yeah, shut up.
He was the next Steve Young.
And I don't have anything against Sean Payton. I just think he's overrated when it comes to the offensive.
It sounds like you do have something.
I don't. I really don't. I like Sean Payton. He's a great guy, but just like quit crowning him an offensive genius. Like shut up, right? But anyways, I think Atlanta is going to win this game. I honestly do. I'm taking the money line on them. You're not. You're taking them to cover, not the money line, which is fine. But let's move on. Let's go into the next great game, which is the Tennessee and Bengals game, right? Or I'm sorry, not the Bengals, but the Browns.
Wow, we're both off today.
Oof, I don't feel good. What's your excuse? Nick Chubb.
It's early.
Derrick Henry.
It's not really
for
early.
Fantasy today. Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry for fantasy today?
I mean, why are we? Yeah,
both.
Why?
Throwing both of them.
So Derrick Henry is the third ranked fantasy running back right now. Nick Chubb, he's farther down the list. He's 23rd, but that's because he missed time. Like there's no reason to not play either of them. And it doesn't matter what defense they're going up against. Both of those guys are must starts every single week, no matter what type of league you play in.
Nick Chubb is amazing. Just 100%. If you have to pick one of them, though, I'm going Derrick Henry. Right? I'm 100%. I'm going Derrick Henry.
If you're just asking who we think is going to have the better day in general, then
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry is the more likely option there. But like, if you have both of them on your roster and you're considering sitting one, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
So James FX90, are you from the future? Let me know. Let me know right now, because if you're from the future, I need some gambling lines.
I think he's saying bet the under. Bet the under on Derrick Henry.
He's saying that Derrick Henry will have a bad game, a very, very bad game. He comes back in, he's a very, very bad game. And I'm curious why, right? Because the Browns' defensive front does not scare me outside of Myles Garrett.
So here's where I could see why that would make sense. And I don't think it has anything to do with the Browns' front. I think it has more to do with their secondary, because teams have been able to pass the ball on them like 100%. Crazy this year. So if the Titans are like, well, let's just throw the ball on them, because that's going to be the easiest thing to do. Like, we can establish the run if we need to, but let's air it out. Let's get A.J. Brown involved. Like, why not do that? Why not get Jonnu Smith involved? Like, if they want to attack the Browns that way, then they're probably going to end up shying away from Derrick Henry a little bit, and that might be the reason that he doesn't have as good of a game, because there's like, we don't need to establish the run right now because we can do whatever we want through the air. Now, that might not end up being the case, but I could see why that would be a thought process.
That's fair. That's 100% fair.
Knapp gets it. Yeah.
Look, James is just taking your side because he was like, "Oh, thank goodness Knapp bailed me out there." And thank goodness Knapp bailed me out. No, but I understand that 100%. One thing that I do want to talk about, since we have to talk about football, right, is the fact that why do teams run the ball, right? I was watching college football, by the way, and I used to love college football. This year, I haven't gotten a chance to watch college football because of my job, but I'm actually out sick.
Also, it's not as good this year. I was talking with one of my friends last night about it, and we were talking about how, like, the disparity between the good teams and the average teams is much more like disparity between good teams and bad teams of previous years. Like, it's so much more clear who the actual good teams are in college football and everybody else.
Yeah. Like, what I don't understand, for one, there's no defense in college football. I don't think that used to be the case, right? I think there used to be
by conference.
Yeah, I was watching the SEC yesterday, and they're supposed to have the best defense. In fact, the announcer said this during the Texas A&M game. They said Texas A&M has the best defense in the country, and they couldn't stop the run to save their lives. Couldn't stop the run. But that's not what I want to talk about. Yeah, I'm a big defensive guy, so I love defense. So it hurt my heart to see guys gashing them for like 7-8 yards, and the announcers say that. I was like, whoa, hold up now. I didn't see the worst defense in the league. But why do teams run the ball so successfully and then they don't utilize play action?
Yeah, I get that.
I feel like more teams need to do that. Say Oakland Raiders. Like, I don't understand them. They can establish
Vegas Raiders.
Vegas Raiders. So I don't understand like what Las Vegas can establish the run, but they don't utilize play action, right? And I understand that I'm a coach from the couch, right? I'm a CC, right? So I don't understand what is going on. I don't know the game plan, all that good stuff. But we can also go into Tennessee Titans. Why don't they utilize the play action, right?
I thought they were one of the, like they utilize it. I think, and this is earlier season stats because I haven't looked into them
For sure,
much recently. This is back when like the Bills were about to play the Titans. At the time, they were, I think, the top 2 or 2 of the top 5 teams in the NFL of like utilization of play action. So I know at one point in the season they were using it a lot because that's what Ryan Tannehill was really successful from. I don't know if they're doing it now though. So just wanted to throw that in there.
So I think Tennessee was a good one to utilize play action. Minnesota was another one. Bills were another one, right? What I hate seeing, right, is I hate seeing the established run game. Don't get me wrong, I love the run game. I'm a big ground and pound and utilize the clock and all that good stuff. That's how my mind sits, right? But what I don't like seeing is that you're gashing them for 6, 7, 8 yards, right? And then all of a sudden, you don't do a play action over the middle, take a shot on first down, right? I hate the first down running play when you're establishing the run. And let me say this because I don't think I'm saying it correctly, right? I hate seeing 7, 8 yards getting on first down, right? And then you continue to run the ball, right? When you know you have the defense on their heels, why don't you take a shot play every so often, especially if you're down, right? Especially if you're down, right? Get a shot play because those corners, those safeties, they're expecting you to continue to run, especially when you're averaging 6, 7 yards. It's one of those things in my mind where I'm like, why don't we utilize play action? Like, why don't we do it? But, you know, that's a rant for another day. We're getting way off subject, but that's how I feel, right? So I don't know. Tennessee and Browns game. Let's talk about gambling when it comes to this game. I'm staying away from it. Okay. I just am. I took Tennessee, right? But I'm staying away from this game because both of these teams have done me wrong, right? They have done me dirty.
I made the Browns my pick.
Yeah, you have a soft spot for the Browns. And I guess it's because you're
living
from
in Ohio.
Yeah,
A bunch of friends who are Browns fans. Yeah, like I guess I do, but I actually like the Browns this year. I don't know. I'm definitely taking a chance because we both put out our picks every week on Tally Site, and then obviously you're on the Action Network as well. But when I put out my picks, I'm taking a chance on Cleveland winning the game outright. I'm taking them to at least cover though.
I just realized it was state against state because I'm from Tennessee and you're from Ohio and we both took our home states, which is fine. I'm just staying away from this game. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It is an 8-3 game. It is 2 teams who are at 8-3.
2 actual good teams.
So and it's a 12 o'clock game, which is dumb. They should have flexed this to the 3, 4 o'clock games, whatever time zone you're in. It doesn't matter, but they should have flexed this game for sure. And the reason
what are you thinking about James's comment here?
I saw it and I made a face. Let
me hear it then.
He's getting over 50 yards. For sure he's getting over 50 yards, right? Especially if they have a lead close to the 3rd or the 4th. They're going to run him like crazy. They're not going to worry about passing the ball. Ryan Tannehill under and passing yards should be a thing. And I get that he's playing the Browns, but no, they want to run Derrick Henry no matter what. Like that's their offensive game plan. So
I think both of these teams, as much as I said everything I said earlier, because I could understand the thought process behind thinking that Derrick Henry is going to have a bad game, I don't agree with that either. I'm with you there. Derrick Henry is the type of guy who, as the season goes on, he gets better and better and better. And he's so big that, like, I don't remember. I saw somebody say this. I don't remember who it was. I don't remember where I saw it. Might have just been scrolling through Twitter and it was like a quote picture or something. But you have to actually want to tackle Derrick Henry just to be able to try and tackle Derrick Henry because he's that big this late in the season when it gets cold out. Taking a hit from a dude moving as fast as he moves is tough. And that's why we saw last year his yards per game went up and up and up as the season went on. So that's a tough one. James, for your sake, if you're betting this, I hope you're right, but I would not put my money on Derrick Henry under 50.
How much money would it take for you to try to tackle Derrick Henry? You got pads on. He's got pads on. Oklahoma.
I don't think this is a fair question because I am broke. It's not going to take much.
I tell you what, I would do it for free. Like if you told me that I had the opportunity to try to tackle Derrick Henry, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Like, but I'm pretty crazy and I'm stupid. I'm missing a lot of brain cells.
I
right?
try and tackle Derrick Henry, I'm going to end up like Josh Norman did. Probably worse.
Dude, if I ended up like
Probably
Josh
worse.
Norman, that would be my profile picture. Like I would wear that on my sleeve, right? And if I was Josh Norman, I would have that. I would have that as my profile picture.
Actually, I'd probably just cease to exist. It would be done.
I'd just cease to
Yeah,
exist.
I would just he would run and you would just see a little explosion. I'd be gone and he'd still be running and it would just be bad.
So let's talk about the Bills game. We don't have a long. We have 26 minutes, but I do want to talk about the Bills game. It is on Monday. Okay.
Wait,
Chad.
real quick, can we do Chad Cooper? Yeah.
Chad, come on down. Come on down for the Price is Right. Chad Cooper, he says Justin Jefferson or Deebo Samuel in the flex. This is a good one. This is a great segue into our Monday night showdown with the 49ers. So let's talk about it.
I like
Justin Jefferson. Yep. Yeah.
I like Justin Jefferson. Here's the thing. I like both of them.
Yep.
Deebo Samuel can get involved in like the 49ers offense a lot of different ways. They're not going to just throw, I guess, a lot of different ways. It's only really 2 different ways because they're either going to throw it to him or they're going to run it with him. They can run the jet sweep with him. They can throw the ball to him. Like he doesn't just have to get receiving yards for him to get points. So he can get involved in multiple ways, but Justin Jefferson he's just on a tear right now. He's having a great year.
Yes.
I'd be hard pressed to shy away from him. I can't do it.
Jefferson right now is a starter. Like and I say starter, but and I understand that flex could be a starter, but I mean like run or wide receiver 1 or 2, right? And he's playing a really, 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 really bad Jaguars team. Like they don't have anybody to cover him right now. So he's probably going to have a really good game. Even though they're going to run the ball a lot, they're still going to get him the ball.
He's always going, because of how well he's playing, he's always going to have opportunities. And I was actually just listening earlier this week, to an interview Kirk Cousins was doing. He was talking, like he could not praise Justin Jefferson enough about how like good of a wide receiver was. He even said like, I wish I had given him more credit earlier in the season for being as good as he was because his numbers would probably be even better at this point in the year because he didn't realize how good Justin Jefferson was until they got him in the right position because they tried to play him in the slot earlier in the year and he can just do everything.
So Justin Jefferson, I think that's the point we're trying to make. Let's talk about the Bills. Because this is a Buffalo Bills show, right? We're not allowed to talk about facial hair or how everybody's doing, or
even though Steve put I haven't seen it yet. I just saw a notification come up on my phone earlier. Steve
probably getting so many.
He put a little tweet out there that definitely would involve my facial hair.
Oh, okay, but we're not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, no, we're
not allowed to talk about it. Let's talk about the Bills. Y'all can't take a joke. You were meant for each other. Oh, look, there's Steve again. Look, guys, we should really praise Judge. He does so much. And I'm being serious. Like, he honestly does so much. The fact that we have all these Buffalo Bills, anything on YouTube, anything that comes with the podcast, anything like that, we should really be praising Judge. The dude works 24/7, right, at his day job. Then comes home and works another 24/7, right, which is impossible to do.
I'll be honest, I'm starting to think he doesn't actually have a day job, and this is.
I don't think he does either because I've never seen this so-called classroom. Right. So I'm curious. So, but Judge does a lot for us. Everything up on the screen, the little scrolly thing that looks like a news segment, Judge does this. So
it makes us look official.
Judge. He texted me at like 7:00 this morning, was like, send me this picture. I'm trying to make a graphic. Like, what are you doing up this early? Like, stop. So really appreciate Judge out there, even though we're not allowed to talk about facial hair on this show. But let's talk about Buffalo. Who are you looking at for Buffalo, right? Who are you looking at? And are they going to get gashed in the running game? Because I think that's the biggest thing. Are they going to get gashed in the running game by Mustard?
All right.
Are they going to get Mustard? He's Mustard. That's
before we do this, I'm just gonna go B-Flow Mafia News. Said Nap talk about Epenesa. So real quick, I know this isn't fantasy. Just give me like 1 minute for this.
1 minute.
Maybe not even a minute. With Epenesa, he didn't have a preseason, so he didn't look very good at the beginning of the year. He's starting to get some more snaps. He's starting to get comfortable. You can see that he's getting to the point where he's close to making plays. He hasn't really made a ton just yet, but you can see that like the wheels are turning in his head Leslie Frazier was saying how he thinks that Epenesa is starting to get better and better. And there's a reason why he got the nod last week over Trent Murphy. It's because they see something in him. So even though the numbers aren't necessarily there for him just yet, I'm pretty confident that even if he's not going to be this crazy, like 15 sack a year guy, I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a type of guy who eventually he'll be able to get to the quarterback, get like 6, 8, maybe push for 10 sacks every now and then. But be a guy that produces for the Bills. So, like, let's not call him a bust. I've seen that come up a lot.
Oh, my God.
I like what he can do. And, yeah, B-Flow Mafia News just put in there, you don't expect numbers from a rookie. I think it's situational. Sometimes you do. But a season like this, a guy who had as many things that, like, he supposedly had to work on in his game to get to be, like, fully NFL pro ready, I'm comfortable with where he's at right now. I would judge him more after what happens next season as opposed to this season. So let's just get that out of the way.
For sure.
Bills, 49ers. You were talking run game, right?
Yes, but I do want to point out that our local future – I don't know what to call him. Our local future friend. He came from the future. He's coming back down here, and that's James FX90 says that Epenesa will have 12+ sacks this month. So I just want y'all to know that if he
That'd
does
be a
go on,
record-setting month, I assume, right?
I would assume
something close to that.
I would assume he would get AFC East some kind of rookie award. But then again, no one likes the Bills in the national media spotlight, so they'd just be like, "Oh, well, he was playing this team." Blah blah blah. So if he does come out, we will know for a fact that James is from the future. Just saying.
Yeah.
But let's jump into it. Is Mustard gonna run for over 50?
How many different names can you call him? Can Mustard run against the Bills? That's what we're wondering
that's a
right
good
now.
question.
Can Mustard run against the Bills?
Because the Bills' defense have gotten so much better since, I think, week 7. My co-host, the wonderful Manny, the Salt and Pepper Angel from Canada, said that the Bills' defense has gotten better since week 7 or something like that. Their defense has really tightened up. But everybody knows when you're playing the Bills, what you should do is establish the run game, right? So is he going to be able to run 50-plus yards? Is that going to be their identity? Is Nick Mullins just going to lean on him specifically?
I mean, 50-plus yards, yeah, I think he would. But I know that's part of one of your bets. So I think 50-plus yards, yes. But do I think that the 49ers are going to be able to just gash the Bills in the run? I'm more hesitant there. I think that there's probably – like the thought process on the 49ers is like they're this heavy run team. They've always been great in the run. They've been great in the run all year. You look at the stats, that's not necessarily true. This year they haven't been as good in the run. The difference – like the thing with that, though, is that they've had injuries, so their best guys haven't been back there.
Oh.
So, like, Mostert specifically has not been back there all year, and they've been much better running the ball when he's there as opposed to anybody else. As good as, like, they can make anybody good running the ball, but he's just so much better in that offense than anybody else. I don't think that he gashes the Bills, but I think he definitely goes over 50. No doubt in my mind he goes over 50.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a 100-yard game, and I honestly do. And I think that the 49ers are going to lean heavily on the run, right? But with that being said, we have Matt Milano back, right? And I said
that's not official yet. I don't think that's official yet, is it? Can somebody check me on that? I thought it wasn't official yet. I didn't, unless it happened this morning.
So
I know of last night it didn't happen.
So the reason why I say that we have Matt Milano back is because both him and they have until Monday.
Yeah, they have till Monday. There we go.
So,
that's what I thought.
And I say this by just letting y'all know that Matt Milano and Tyrell Dotson were practicing on Saturday, right?
Yes.
So they were practicing on Saturday, which tells me that, hey, they're probably going to activate him for this game, right? And if they do activate for this game, man, Edmonds plays so much better when Matt Milano is next to him, right? And that allows Edmonds it frees him up to stop the run game, right? It honestly does, okay? So if he's playing, I think he'll be that's a matchup to watch, right? When we talk about
if he's playing, it completely changes how the Bills defense can play. Not only because it allows Edmonds to play better, and I actually talked about this on the podcast this past week, but it might even allow Klein to play even more of like that Lorenzo Alexander role. We've seen how good he is this month, rushing the passer. 4.5 sacks this past month. if we can get him into a role where he doesn't have to be out in coverage as often and he can go after the quarterback more, maybe that's a better spot for him to be in that specific Lorenzo Alexander role where he's got 15 or so snaps at linebacker, 15 or so snaps rushing the passer. That might be the better role for Klein. So not only does it help the linebacker unit, it might help getting pressure on the quarterback too.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So, there's my co-host right there. Thanks for showing up at the end of the show, man. I appreciate you really going out there and supporting your guys.
Just I would never say that to you. I would never just call you a loser or anything like that.
So I want to
talk
about the bets that I have on this game, the Monday night game. I want to talk about the bets that I have, and I think let's
do the bets, and then we'll get into. We have to finish with our must starts for this game.
For sure. So, Buffalo Bills money line, right? I think it's criminal. I think it honestly is criminal that they're not favored in this game, right? They went to being favored, then all of a sudden, nope, they're not favored, right?
Heavy money on the 49ers right now.
Yeah, which is hilarious, right? And I don't think that should be the case, okay? But I've got the Bills money line. I've got Josh Allen over 263.5 passing yards. So you're laughing at Manny's comment. I
am. But also, while you're doing this, I'm going to run and get my charger because my laptop is dying at a very fast rate.
Unprepared. That's okay. So I've got Josh Allen over 263.5 passing yards. The reason why I have that is every time he has a low game when it comes to passing yards, he immediately comes back the next week and he blows it up. If you start looking at his stats going back to the Kansas City game where he had low stats that game, he came back the next week, blew it up. I think this is a game where they try to establish the run, but they can't establish the run, so they have to get Josh Allen into the passing game. So I've got him over 263.5 passing yards. Then I have Josh Allen anytime touchdown score, okay, which should be obvious. He's going to get the goal line carries. He's going to run the ball. That's very obvious. He's been scoring at the goal line very, 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 very often. And then I have Raheem Mostert over 55.5 rushing yards, right? That's an obvious. We've already talked about the implications of him in the rushing game. But this one is very interesting. The Gabriel Davis over 40.5 receiving yards. I think this is so interesting because he's either going to get it or he's not, right? And
that's like the over-unders there. They're either going to go for over or under.
But he's a curious case. He's such a curious case. Gabriel Davis is, right? Because now that Smoke is out, now that John Brown is out, he's kind of going to be filling in that role. And I said it on my podcast, and I'm sure you agree that we should be seeing bombs to him, 50-50 balls to him, or 70-30 balls to him because he's so tall.
That's what he did in college. That's what everybody talked about that. That's what he did. He liked to have the contested catches down the field.
And he's good at it. So I think we should be seeing more of that. And I think 2, 3, maybe even 4 plays a game that we should be seeing Josh Allen targeting Gabriel Davis on the outside. So that's why I've got him over 40 yards because he could get that in one play. And he did it last week against L.A. But I think that was the one that everybody was like, oh, don't do it. But it's like, hey, I really like it, right? I really, really like it. And then, of course, I've got Nick Mullins under 248.5 because I think they're just going to run the ball the whole time, right? So those are my bets for that. I threw down $5 to win, $450.
And how many? So with these parlays that you're doing, I think people have to remember if they're going to jump in on these parlays with you, it's not necessarily you're going to win every single week with them. It's you win a couple of these a year, you're doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that you're for sure going to win. Like I have one for the Arizona game that I just 100% I'm going to win that one. Like that's not even funny. And then of course I think this Bills game, like I feel very confident in that one as well. I think the biggest one is going to be the Nick Mullins under and the Gabriel Davis over. I think those two are going to be the big ones. But yeah, you're right. You're not going to win every single one of them. But what else are you going to spend $5 on?
Yeah, no, I mean I like that.
What else are you going to spend $5 on? So who are your must starts for this game?
I actually like Gabriel Davis. I really like Gabriel Davis for this one. And it's because of Richard Sherman. Because Richard Sherman is probably going to be focusing on taking away Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
So I like Gabriel Davis. I don't have much more reasoning for it other than that and John Brown being out. But like Gabriel Davis, when John Brown has been out, he's more often than not, he has stepped up. And he's at least had a couple of catches for 40, 50 yards. And then obviously we know he's had a couple of touchdowns. A couple of them got called back because of stupid penalties.
Yeah, it's awful.
He's having a very, very good year. I'm gonna trust in Gabriel Davis.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
It should be Cole Beasley. That should be the answer. But we don't know. Like it. I'm frustrated with this.
Why are you frustrated with Cole?
I'm not frustrated with Cole
because I love Cole.
Great. I'm frustrated with the Bills' usage of Cole Beasley because he should be getting the ball more. He only got targeted 3 or 4 times last week. He had 2 catches. That's unacceptable. If the Bills want to have a really good passing game, that's unacceptable. He is far too good to have that bad of usage. They need to get him the ball more, but it seems like when like the times where it's like the Bills, if they go to Cole Beasley, it just makes more sense this game. Those feel like the games where they're like, we're going to shy away from Cole Beasley this week. And I don't get it. It's baffling.
I want to say, and somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong, right? Cole Beasley is the master of sitting in the zone, finding the zone. And the 49ers do a lot of press coverage, man-to-man coverage, right? I think that's correct because Richard Sherman is really good in press coverage, so that would make sense in my mind. They would utilize that a lot. So this would be the game that Cole Beasley is probably going to be very successful in because the Bills are going to be like, you know what? Zone coverage, they don't play it. Let's go ahead and throw the ball to Cole a lot, right? So, I don't know, man. He is the security blanket for Josh Allen, though.
He is, but I don't know. It's weird because I do think like that should be the answer. The must start for the Bills, it should be Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley every single week. Stephon Diggs makes me a little nervous because of how good Richard Sherman is. It's going to be like every other week. Like Stephon Diggs is going to get his, but Richard Sherman's also going to get his too. Like it's going to go both ways, and it's probably going to even out to somewhere in the middle. When you have 2 players who are as good as they both are, usually one of them is not going to get the better of the other one like that much more to make it like very obvious. But Sherman's probably also not going to be shadowing Diggs. I'm sticking with it. Gabriel Davis is my go-to. Must start. Gabriel Davis.
I agree. I love Gabriel Davis. Watching Beasley throw him a touchdown last week made my heart melt. Now, let's talk about the run game, right? Are we starting any of the running backs?
I'm hesitant. Actually, this is super hypocritical of me. I'm hesitant if you have a choice to play any of them. I am personally starting Zach Moss this week in my league because I don't have a choice because of Josh Jacobs. So I have to play Zach Moss. If I had the choice, I would not play him this week, though. He looked pretty good when he got his opportunities last week. Obviously, he had that big run at the end, and they're starting to get both him and Singletary involved in the passing game in different ways. Singletary more a screen game. Zach Moss seems to line up more and actually run routes. But I'm hesitant against the 49ers and like their front 7. Even if they're missing guys, their front 7's still good.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal something from Manny. Manny made a great quote on the podcast about the run game. He said that you need to go north and south against this 49ers team.
Yeah, that was really smart.
And our running backs don't necessarily go north and south, right? So if you've got Devin Singletary and he bounces out to the left or the right, he's going east and west, and he's not going north and south. They have the linebacker. They have a linebacker core to tackle him for the loss. So I think that's where the run game is probably going to be stopped, right? So I'm not starting them. I'm just not. And look, I get that Zach Moss has been great, and I love Zach Moss. I love Devin Singletary. I love these guys. I think they're great players. But when it comes to fantasy terms, I think they're so hit or miss that I'm not starting them. I'm just not.
If you can help it. If you have other guys you could play the other guys because you're more likely than not going to be right. If you're stuck in a situation where you have to play one of them, I think you can get by, but it's not going to be like this huge output most likely.
It's not. 100% it's not. It's just no, I'm just not doing it, right? Especially when it's playoff time. right? When you're relying on someone who's as inconsistent as our running backs are. Now, don't get me wrong, this might be the game that they run for, the Patriots game where they both run for over 200 yards each, and it's just historical day for everybody, right? And I get that Moss is a north and south type of back, but they have the linebacker core to stop this run, right? And I don't see them. I see them trying to establish the run, but I see them quickly going away from it, which is another reason why you should go Josh Allen on the over, right? And with his passing runs,
yeah.
Right?
Is there a guy who you think is like absolute must start for the 49ers? Because
Raheem.
Is it Raheem? Okay.
Yeah, it's Raheem Mustard for sure.
What about in the passing game? Is there anybody in the passing game who is like a must start for them? Because it used to be Kittle. He was a must start every single week.
100%.
But without him, they don't have that clear cut go to, at least in my opinion.
No, I don't like the passing game. Not for this game, because I think Raheem Mustard is gonna do so good on the ground.
I can't listen to you.
I think he's gonna do so good on the ground that it's not gonna matter. And Manny throws out in the chat Brandon Ayuk, right? Now they use him as an extension of the run game. Right, an extension of the run game, because they use as a gadget guy. They use him as an extension with these quick screen passes and stuff like that. I just think
he's their Isaiah McKenzie, except for he's utilized a lot more. Like they actually he's always in their game plan if he's available. So that's the type of role that he plays for them. For anybody who hasn't really watched their games,
and I say this, but I honestly think there's not a receiver, and that's not going to be their game plan. I think Kyle Shanahan is really going to lean on the run a lot in this game. Now, if the Bills jump to a quick and like a 17 or whatever lead, like they tend to do, and they just wait and let teams come back on them. If that happens, then you'll probably see Nick Mullins passing a lot. But if I was them, I wouldn't go away from the run game. I just
if you have to, then if you have to find like a wide receiver for them, if you have, let's say you have Ayuk and you have Samuels, play Samuels. That's my own opinion there. I like what he can do in the offense better than what Ayuk can do.
Yeah. But other than that, there's not a clear cut someone on the 49ers that I absolutely like. Yeah, it's a primetime game. We got to hit them with the trick play. We're going to see the
Deion Dawkins TD. It's coming this week. Deion Dawkins TD.
Yeah, Manny thinks this is a trap game. I
can see how it is.
Like he thinks it's a trap game. I don't. Right? He thinks we're looking ahead to the Steelers. I don't. I don't. I think this is a game where Bills Mafia is going to be mad, and we're going to call for the firing of Sean McDermott. Even though we won, they're going to find. You know what I like doing? No, I'm not. No, I am going to say it. I like getting on Twitter and just looking at everybody be mad that the Bills are winning. Right? I really
am mad that the Bills.
Yeah, because they are right. Like there's always something to be mad about. Like I don't know. I really just want to start putting things like, what are we mad about today? Right, but everybody calls for the firing of Sean McDermott after a win, which is hilarious.
I haven't seen that in a little bit, which is good.
I should probably start unfollowing people because I do see it. After that Hail Mary, there can't be a trap game. I don't think this is a trap game. And
I think the reason it's not a trap game is because it's a nationally televised game.
Yeah.
It's a Monday night football game. The Bills don't get those, or they haven't gotten those in the past very often. When was the last Monday night football game for the Bills? I'm trying to remember when it was. Maybe it might have been this against the Seahawks a couple years ago, or that might have been Sunday night football. No, that was Monday night with Tyrod. I think he got down to the 5 or 10 yard line, couldn't finish the game out. I think that was a Monday night game. That was a couple years ago. So these games don't come around very often for the team. I think when you have a big time game like this against a opponent that even if they're not having the best year, they're still a formidable opponent. The 49ers are still a good team.
For sure.
I don't think that's a trap game because I think that the Bills know that and they know how big this moment is.
And I said that I'm scared of Kyle Shanahan, by the way. But I said this. I said, with this coach, with Sean McDermott as our coach, I think, right, and I'm not in the locker room, but I'm pretty sure he has them focused one game at a time. Like, that is his mentality. He's such a blue-collar guy where it's like, hey, handle business one game at a time, right? One game at a time, right? Next man up. Like that, all those cliches, right, about living in the moment. And that's why I don't think it's going to be a trap game, right? Because he's proved it. Like, if you ain't playing right, he'll put somebody else in, right? So I don't think it's a trap game. But Kyle Shanahan scares me. Like, if he popped out from around a corner, I'd probably freak out, right? Because he's scary. But man, yeah, I'm done.
All right. So give me what are you betting for this game right now? What are your must bets? And that's how we'll finish it out for the Bills 49ers matchup Monday Night Football.
I think my must bets, if we're going to take the over unders, I think my must bets are going to be Raheem Mostert over 50.5 yards. I think Josh Allen over 263 yards. And I think the Bills money line. And if you really want to get creative, I honestly like the Josh Allen anytime touchdown. I don't necessarily like looking at who's going to score a touchdown for the Bills because I feel like it differs every week. There's not a consistent person. It's always someone different. And Tyler Kroft caught a touchdown. Like, I mean, let's be for real. I think Lee Smith has Lee Smith caught a touchdown this year?
Lee Smith has a touchdown.
Yeah,
catch, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's just –
Josh Allen likes to spread the ball around a lot, so it's tough to do.
Yeah,
it's tough to do Bills anytime touchdowns.
But Josh Allen should be there for the anytime touchdown. So if you're paying attention, that's Josh Allen anytime touchdown. Josh Allen over 263.5 yards. Raheem Mostert over 50.5 yards. And then the Bills money line, and that's a good four-way parlay. Throw down $5, you can probably win $120. Like, you're turning that into. But those are my must bets that I think are 100% going to hit.
Yeah, I like those. I don't have the individual player props like you do. That's your thing. That's your segment with your show and everything. Obviously, you're the gambling guy. I'm all in on Bills money line, especially with all the money that's poured in on the 49ers. Yep. Push the line the way it has. If you can get the Bills as an underdog at this point in the season, I will take a chance on betting that. At the very least, I will take a chance on betting that. Even if I'm not 100% confident, but this is a game where I'm pretty confident that the Bills are going to win. And I actually think that the Bills are going to win by more than a touchdown.
I mean, let's be real. Every time we say the Bills are going to win in fashion, they never do. So
I didn't say it was going to. I think it's going to be one of those games where the score doesn't actually say everything about the game. But
I love Eric Eggleston's comment. He says, calling it AJ Epenesa going to live in the backfield today. That's right. The game's not until Monday, but he is doing it.
Hopefully he lives in the backfield tomorrow, too.
He's doing it up on a Sunday, though. No, but
I think Eric listened to my podcast because that was one of my predictions.
But no, man, that's I don't know. Bills are going to win. It's going to be a 27 14 game, 27-17 game. Like, it's going to be one of those games. And that's how I feel. So
yeah. I think it's going to be difficult. So the game? There's a game Tuesday now too, right? Because Baltimore's playing. Yeah, because Baltimore plays Tuesday. So matchups don't end on Monday. I think that makes things interesting for fantasy.
I don't know. Is there a game Tuesday?
Yeah, the Baltimore game, the one that I totally messed up.
I'm scrolling.
Baltimore Dallas got moved to Tuesday.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is a Tuesday game at 7:00. That is a good game. So yeah, to the shout out to the guy who said who asked about Todd Gurley or J.K. Dobbins. You have until Tuesday.
Get Connor out of here. Get Connor out of here.
Brill's going to lose against the backup quarterback.
Get Connor out of here.
Oof. Well, you know what? What is better? Casey's make moonshine in the mountains beard or Casey's casting couch producer stash?
I don't think Casey has both.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I don't know.
You really butchered that one.
Yeah, you did. Hey, you
were so close.
I like you, Judge. I think you're a great guy, and because of that, I'm going to give you a second chance. Okay, so we're going to rewind the tape. And I'm going to give you a second chance, right? I'm going to give you a second chance. But no, guys, I think that's it for us. I think that's it for the fantasy.
Perfect.
Corner.
We can stop the voting there because I have one vote.
You have one vote. More sessions better. Woo! Yep. Let's go.
There we go.
But I'll end it by saying that definitely go to thebuffalofanatics.com if you want to listen to or you want to read anything about Bills Mafia. It's always up there. We have, there's 2, 3, 4, 5 daily articles that come out all the time. We have a great group of writers. They come on before us and they look sharp. We do dress like bums, but that's okay because normally we're not in front of the camera. Okay, here it is. What is better, Casey's make moonshine in the mountains beard or Nap's casting couch producer stash? So there we go. Judge got a second chance at it. But outside of that, make sure
Judge,
that
why don't you make a Twitter poll on that? See if we can get
Twitter
anybody to vote. That'll be interesting. I don't really want this to be out on Twitter, me looking like that, but I'm already on YouTube like this, so why not? Whatever.
It's going to be the beard anyways. But make sure that you check out Nap Knows Bills. He comes out every Friday. You can catch him out there. He does bold predictions. If you go to his Twitter page, which is Nap Knows Bills, right? He always asks, what are your bold predictions? And he reads them on his show, which is pretty awesome. I don't do that with my listeners, but he goes out of his way and he listens to y'all and he does that. So make sure you give him a follow on anywhere that you can find podcasts, by the way. And then, of course, I follow him with Manny Diol, who is out there in the comments right now talking trash about me. But he's out there and he's a great co-host. But that's Buff City Podcast, and we come out every Saturday. Casey doesn't care about you. I always ask, hey, like, send me your questions, and I get one guy, like, and he's a great guy. Like
it's me. It's not.
His name is Henry. He always messages me on Twitter about fantasy advice and gambling picks. He's a cool guy. I don't know what he does, but anyways, Manny's way more popular on Henry's not imaginary.
Henry is Casey's best friend.
Henry's my BFF. But Manny's way more active on Twitter. I've been taking a step back because I'm sick. I'm not feeling too well. But you can find us. That's Buff City. That comes out every Saturday, and then of course the YouTube shows every single day. But I think that's it for us. We're gonna get on out of here. I need to take some medicine, and I might go to sleep. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm done. Okay, I'm gonna mute it.
All right, yeah, that's how you want to end it. All right, well, that's the show then. Go Bills.
Go Bills.